Hi everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday. Oops, we got a little cord Nazi down here. Oh, there we go. All right, bye baby. Harold's jumping in to help me out. Okay, so last week we finished out the day. We had a lovely evening with all kinds of charm stuff going on, and we learned how to use templates, and we learned how to use, I'm calling them rune charms as opposed to just charms. Charms are, you know, you have a charm, you have all the logical connections, it's filled with neutral magic, boom, you're off and running. And then I'm calling them kind of rune charms to differentiate what Tyler and Annabeth are making, which is basically glass or I guess copper for Tyler, for John, encased in some sort of, you know, solidifying, fortifying item, and then it's literally just the rune. So I'm calling it a rune charm because it's kind of a charm, but it's only got the rune in it. There you go. Anyway, all right, sidetrack there. Okay, so we finish out the end of the night, and Jason has had a wonderful evening, drank way too much, had a wonderful time, but he's in a very safe space, so that's cool. And at the end of the day, Tyler is carrying him and Eggie and both of the cats back to their room, get everybody all tucked up, ready to go, and Jason falls asleep. So now we're on our next day, Chapter 40, Ultimate Diner. I should have woken up with a terrible hangover. My mouth should have tasted like old socks. My stomach should have been ready to hurl, and any sounds at all should have been too loud. Instead, the worst I felt was that I had to pee. I told T he was the bomb. He was a saint. His whole grove was filled with saints. He deserved stacks of gold. He had the adoration of thousands, and all the thanks that I could give. I needed to drain the main vein in the worst way possible, though, so I slipped out of bed and hurried to the bathroom. I peed for an hour straight. Not really. Before I realized all the grannies and octas were flying around me and hooting in joy. "Good morning, everyone," I said happily. "Do you have any news to share?" I was pretty sure what it was, but I wanted to give them the satisfaction of telling me. "The task to which you have assigned us is done," the head granny exclaimed. "The park and all the surrounding residents are completely free of hostile magic." "That is fantastic," I broadcast to all my soul creations, and then we did a happy dance together. This was a big moment, and it was something that we'd been working on for a long time. The park had first been contaminated when Isabel and her crew had attacked us at the picnic bench when we'd been recharging our charms. Then it had gotten further contaminated when the Louisville mages and their allies had attacked the house. Our house shields had held and they'd been beaten back, but it still left a lot of hostile magic in the park. The worst contaminant, however, was when I'd fought the rotten mage and he'd exploded. That had sent foul, acidic magic just about everywhere. It had hurt the trees, grass, and all the other lovely greenery I'd come to enjoy. It had also hung in the air, and even the mundane people had felt something was wrong and hurried on by. Now, all that was gone, and the park was fresh and clean again. I thanked the grannies for all their hard work and dedication, and made sure to give each of them a moment of special attention. They were happy, but they needed a break. So I sent them to Penny, and she absorbed them when they were ready. Finally, it was just the head granny hovering near me, and I gave her a special heartfelt thank you. She had enjoyed organizing her team, and she was very proud of what they'd accomplished. I told her again how wonderful she was, and then she too went to Penny for a well-deserved rest. Octa and her tangle were next. They had done a fantastic job taking the magic the grannies had collected and moving it into Sandy and Annabeth. Because of them, Annabeth had a matrix, and Sandy had recovered and saved John from merging with Earth. Then they'd given Aggie all the power he could absorb and given the rest to the house. Their job hadn't been exciting, but it had been vital to getting everybody back on their feet and helping to clear the park. I told each of the octopuses how amazing they were, and then they went to Penny to take a break also. Finally, it was just me and Octa, and we had our extra special moment together. She had been one of the longest lasting and most successful soul creations I'd made, and I would certainly call on her again. For now, it was nap time. I felt a little sad as I'd gotten used to having them all around. I still had my surfer dudes, though, to keep me company, and of course I still had Red and T. I went back to the bedroom and noticed that Eggy was back on his stand by the window again. This time he was sporting a mix of wildflowers and long strands of grass. The arrangement had levels to it, and it was really pretty. I went over and said hi for a minute, asking him how it was going. He was thoroughly enjoying his new shape and his new life. The morning sun felt wonderful, and he loved his new flowers. Satisfied he was happy, I went back to bed. But instead of snuggling up with Tyler, I pulled the covers back and just took a while feasting my eyes on the magnificent man that shared my life. His skin looked so smooth and warm. His muscles, which could be so hard and powerful, were now soft and peaceful. The morning light cast shadows on his eyelashes, and his lips were open in a gentle sigh. He was normally all man and devastatingly handsome, but in moments like this, he looked pretty. Actually, I'd have to say he looked beautiful. His features were timeless, like something out of mythology. I might be a god, but he definitely looked the part. All those good looks would have been useless without a good heart, and he certainly had that in spades. He'd cleaned up after me when Anna Lickett had been playing her tricks on me, and he'd been there for me when I'd been at my worst. He had patience and understanding, but he was also playful and fun. I'd seen guys fall in love before, and during the honeymoon phase they thought the other could do no wrong. I knew I was in the first phase of our relationship, and I didn't know how it was going to end up. But right here, right now, he seemed perfect. I curled up beside him and ran my hand over his chest and then down his fine stomach. Somehow, he felt like a warm blanket and a coiled tiger all at the same time. For a moment, I slipped into the fantasy that I could wake up every morning like this. He wouldn't need to go away on missions for the house, and we didn't have any enemies. We could just wake up every morning, make love, watch a show, and begin our day. I smiled at the thought of it and how happily ever after it would all be, until I felt a chill. It was like someone was walking on my grave. I felt goosebumps and I shivered, and to shake the feeling, my mind was just playing tricks on me. "Do you like what you see?" Tyler asked playfully. He blinked at me with sleepy brown eyes. I got lost in their molten beauty and let my bleak moment fade from memory. "You have some mighty fine wares, sir," I said in my best Cockney accent, "but I'm really looking for something special." "Oh?" He played right along. "Well, would you be interested in a chest of loading?" He flexed his chest at me one side at a time, all Terry Crews style. Do they have any special attributes?" I asked. "Why, yes," he replied. "We have wagon loading plus 10 and barrel loading plus 4. I laughed at the gamer references. My baby is cool like that. "Well, I don't have any barrels at the moment, and I fell off the wagon last night," I said lightly. "What else you got?" "I got Candyman abs," he said in the sing-song voice. I picked up the song reference right away. "Let me guess," I said. "They're a one-stop shop, make my panties drop." "For sure," he said with a body roll, which wasn't easy as we were still in bed. "I like where you're going," I replied, "but I hear that good things come to boys that wait." I gave myself a mental high five for working in even more song lyrics. I had to focus on that because his abs were making me hot. "Well," his voice got husky, "I do have a magic sausage." "Oh?" I tried to act all nonchalant. "And what makes it magical?" "If you lick it, it grows big and hard." He wiggled his eyebrows at me suggestively. Really? I said, trying to keep it light and playful, but he was turning me on. I haven't had breakfast yet, and the British do love their bangers and mash. Maybe a magic sausage is just what I need. Let me give it a try. I leaned over and gave his sleeping member a long lick. Then I gave him a saucy look and licked it again. Would you look at that? I said in wonder. It's growing. I licked it again, then again. How big does it get? I asked gleefully. Big enough to knock out a robber, he replied. I laughed at the mental image of smacking a masked intruder over the head with Tyler's big dick. That would be funny as hell. That's pretty large, and it sounds like it's multi-purpose too. I like that. Now, how hard does it get? I took him in my hand, held him in the air, and licked all over his head. You're making it pretty damn hard, he moaned. After that, I dropped the act and just enjoyed the heck out of him. I loved watching his abs flex and tasting how urgent his sausage was. In the end, I bought his magic sausage, his Candyman abs, and his chest of loading. I paid for it all with services rendered. Once I was fully satisfied with my purchase, we switched it up, and Tyler went shopping at my mart. He bought everything he could get his hands on, and he got his hands on a lot. He touched and teased and licked until I was mad with lust. Then he held me down and shagged my brains out. We came together and then spent a while cuddling and kissing. I was still feeling hot, so I begged him for another round. It was wonderful, just wonderful. I had missed Tyler so much, and getting to spend quality time like this together was just heaven. I wasn't going to spend all day in bed though, so we finally finished playing hide the salami and got up. We spent time washing each other in our fantastic walk-through shower, and then shaved and finished getting ready in my tropical treasure themed bathroom. It still blew me away just how awesome it was. It wouldn't work for everyone, but for me it was the perfect blend of luxury and whimsy. As I dressed, I realized how much clothing I'd destroyed recently. I really needed to go shopping and restock my closet. Then I had an idea. The house had provided an all-black stealthy outfit for me to hunt down Big Ugly and the gang. Maybe I could do regular clothing too? House, I called. I have this lovely walk-in closet and very little to put in it. Can you keep me stocked with the basics? T-shirts, jeans, shorts, underwear, socks, and shoes. Yeah, basics. I just need stuff I can wear around the house and go outside to the park. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I paused, but the house didn't give me any acknowledgement. It usually didn't, so I was sure it was fine. Thank you very much, I said sincerely and knocked on the wall. If you can, that's great. If you can't, that's fine too. I appreciate all you do for me. I really do. I gave the wall an affectionate pat and moved on. My walk-in closet was high class and so nice, but it was also so empty. Tyler somehow just changed his clothes magically, so he didn't need any closet space. Even though my walk-in closet was set up for 2 people. One thing I hadn't checked on yet was the transfer room. Was it available? If so, had the Centaur Llama sent my special clothes yet? I thought about what Annabeth had said yesterday about Eggy going to her place to have tea and read a book if he got tired of Tyler and I playing hide the sausage. I didn't think he cared, but I sent a quick thought to Eggy and asked him. Oh no, he replied, I don't mind at all. I love being near the forge. That reference lost me. The forge? I asked. That's what I assumed you were doing, he replied seriously. He was banging the impurities out of you. I just figured that was a fleshy way of forging somehow. I just about fell over laughing. You're correct, Eggy, I replied. We were banging. And I feel much better now. Thank you for understanding. Of course, my source, Eggy replied. I hope you forge often. I hope we forge often too, I replied happily. I told Tyler about it and he got a good laugh. We'll have to bang out some more of those impurities later, he said with a wink. "I'd like that very much," I replied as I pulled him in and kissed him. "Now how about some breakfast? I've got dry cereal, cereal with milk, and cereal with milk and sugar on top." "I don't know how you start with Frosted Flakes and then add sugar," he said as his mouth puckered in distaste. "That is just too sweet for me." We started to head to the kitchen, but for the first time, we noticed the door exiting the bedroom was in a different spot. I shot Tyler a questioning look as I opened the door and stepped through. I should have walked into my living room. Instead, I stepped into an entrance room, greeting room of some kind. It was big, much bigger than my previous living room had been. The tropical theme continued here with weathered wood floors, white walls, and huge skylights that let in lots of sun. There were wicker baskets, tropical plants in ceramic pots, and bamboo rugs. The statement piece of the room was a huge 7-foot mirror encased in a thick turquoise frame. The frame itself had ocean waves and sea foam carved into it, and the whole looked like something the whole thing looked like something a pirate would have stolen back in the 1700s. Once I noticed the turquoise, I could see its accents everywhere in the room. There were comfortable white chairs and a soft white sofa with turquoise end tables. The whole place managed to look elegant yet relaxed. It was mansion meets beach home. "Dorothy, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore," Tyler commented as he looked around, taking it all in. "For real," I breathed. "I've been so busy I forgot I'd asked the house to transform the rest of my apartment. I had thought I would work on it with Annabeth at some point, but I guess the house beat me to it." I told Tyler about meeting Pixie Girl and our conversation about Morphos points. I told him how she'd said the house would do what she wanted, but in the most fantastical and expensive way possible. "That is true," Tyler agreed. "When I set up the beach gym, I told the house exactly what I needed. I shudder to think what the house would have created on its own. I'm sure it would have been amazing, but it probably would have cost double the points." "So, how many Morphos points do you have now?" I asked the house, and it pulled up a scroll with a number. My heart sank. "I have 212 points left," I said sadly. "I had 173,000 the last time I checked before I went to the gathering." "That's still a lot," he said encouragingly. "I know regular young mages would kill to have that many points." "I thought I had well over 200,000 before this happened," I said. I still wasn't ready to let it go yet. The grannies had been cleaning the whole time I was at the gathering, and they just finished up this morning. Some of the magic went to Aggie, but most of it went to the house. I looked around at the beautiful room. I guess this is my new living room? I like it, and I think it would be nice to hang here, but I don't 200,000 Morphos points like it. I must have looked sad because Tyler gave me a big sympathetic hug. "I don't think this is your living room. I'm pretty sure this is just your greeting room for when your guests arrive. I'm also sure the house would have spent 200 grand on just this one room. Let's go look and see what else you have." I looked around confused until he pointed to a large arch in the back and a door in the far wall. "Oh, how would I miss that?" I wanted to look through the other door first, so we crossed the room to check it out. Now I knew there was more to see. I could relax a bit and appreciate the greeting room for what it was. The space really was nice. I could see Annabeth and Sandy just chilling in the chairs, waiting for us to get ready. Actually, this would be a great place to read, too. It was well lit, the couch looked comfortable, and there were plenty of places for the cats to nap. Now I just needed a quiet moment to actually start a new book. Once we got close, it was obvious the other door was a bit different. It was like it was sealed extra well. I was puzzled for a moment until I stepped inside. My mouth dropped open as I took in the amazing sight. "Holy crap! You have your own theater!" Tyler exclaimed. He was right, but it was even better than that. Theaters are made for multiple people to enjoy the show. This one was made so that just a few people had maximum enjoyment. For starters, there were no theater seats. Instead, there was a huge square couch in the middle of the room. It was about 8 foot by 8 foot and had a comfortable raised back, like a couch, around everywhere but the front side. In the middle were comfortable throws and pillows to snuggle up with, and all around the couch were small tables to hold food and drinks. It was almost like the couch was ready for one big sleepover, and it was plenty big enough for Tyler and me and 2 cats. Any theater lives and dies on its screen, and this screen was awesome. It was like an IMAX screen, filling up the entire front wall, and it had a curve to get that window experience. The floor even sloped down a bit so the screen could start below the floor, and the ceiling sloped up so the picture could fully fill your vision. I always thought a 75-inch screen was pretty big. Now I had a screen that was almost 20 feet. That was just crazy, and I loved it. The whole room had indirect lighting along the floor and ceiling, and it was bright enough to see where we were going, but dim enough not to interfere with the show. Bermuda and Mr. Tubbles wandered into the room and hopped up onto the square couch. Bermuda nosed around a bit while Mr. Tubbles flopped down on a throw. Then he got up and flopped down on another throw. Then he got up and laid over a pillow. It looked like he was going to try and sample all the cozy options the sofa had to offer. "Want to try it out?" I asked Tyler. "Sure," he replied, hopping over the back of the sofa. I hopped over the other side as well and immediately fell in love with my new lounger. It was firm enough to sit comfortably, and the back provided plenty of support to lean against. I didn't need any pillows, but the throws were nice. Even with the 4 of us, there was still plenty of room. I figured it could hold everyone, including Sandy, John, and Annabeth, if we didn't mind getting a little closer. Even with all that space, Tyler curled up next to me and the cats curled up next to us. He put his arm around my shoulders and kissed me on the cheek. He felt solid and warm, and he smelled nice. It took us a moment to figure out how to operate the theater, but basically it worked by voice and gestures. I had access to all the streaming services, Netflix, YouTube, Amazon Prime, etc., as well as all the views in the bank. Tyler wanted to watch my fight with Eugene, and I agreed. I didn't want to take the time to watch a full show, as we still hadn't explored the rest of my apartment yet. Tyler seemed to know what to do, so I let him navigate the bank's menu. He picked a view from a recorder that was a little higher than the ring, and yet still close enough to see all the details. He paid the fee. Apparently, nothing on the bank was free, and we sat back and watched the show. The viewing experience was insanely awesome. The lights dimmed a bit and the screen was so big it filled my vision. It was like I was really there. I didn't see any speakers, but the crowd roared around me as I started my march to the ring. I'd forgotten how powerful the procession had been, but it was emotional. I felt Tyler's arm flex in time with the chant of "Do not fall." I knew what was going to happen, but my heart started racing just the same. The fight itself was intense. I remember just trying to stay alive and fight back, so the experience of being a spectator was totally new. There were closer calls than I remembered, and the length of the fight was a lot quicker than I thought it would be. Nevertheless, Tyler was totally impressed. He quizzed me about what I was thinking during parts of the match, and we rewound it and watched it again. Tyler asked a few more questions, but I was starting to feel uneasy. This fight hadn't been a friendly tussle in the arena. This had been a grudge match with terrible consequences. My fate as a supernatural and the future of our house had been on the line. Rewatching it and analyzing all this just didn't feel right yet. It was too much, too soon. Tyler picked up on my mood as he turned it off and gave me a big hug. I lost myself in his embrace, and I just let the bad feelings fade away. That was twice today I'd felt apprehensive. Tyler suggested we go back and check out the rest of the apartment, and I quickly agreed. The theater room is fantastic, but when we came back again, I just wanted to watch a regular show. Both cats were snuggled down and didn't want to move, so we kissed them and left them there for now. They seemed to be able to move throughout the house however they wanted, so they would catch up when they were ready. We returned to the greeting room and then went to the back and through the arch. We were now in my kitchen, but it was nothing like it had been before. Previously, my kitchen had looked like something you'd find in a regular small apartment. It had a stove, a sink, refrigerator, and, a reasonable number of cabinets. It hadn't been big, but I mostly liked cereal and sandwiches, so it had worked for me. Now my kitchen was huge. It looked like a 1950s diner, crossed with a candy shop, crossed with a grocery store. The decor was all from that era, with black checkered floors, red leather, and pink countertops. There were shiny steel accents everywhere with tasteful touches of turquoise. I had a long countertop with bar stools, a couple of booths that could sit 6 people easily, and a few regular 4-person tables that could be configured however they were needed. All that was nice, but the real magic happened behind the counter. I had everything I could ever want, or at least that's the way it felt. I had a soft serve ice cream machine loaded up and ready to go with toppings. I had a theater popcorn maker with fresh popcorn ready to go. There was a fountain soda and a standing cooler stuffed full of all kinds of beers. I had 3 ovens, a regular one, a wide one that looked like it was for pizza, and a small one that looked like it was useful for small jobs like Hot Pockets. I had 4 refrigerators. Who has 4 refrigerators? Apparently I do now. They were filled with frozen goods and all sorts of themed items. Like one side of one refrigerator was filled with different pizzas, ready to be warmed up. It also had extra toppings and cheese in case I wanted to use one of them as a base and really load it up. I'm a sandwich guy, and the sandwich selection was massive. I had all kinds of breads, meats, cheeses, vegetables, and condiments. Tyler was a snacker like me, and he was almost speechless with the overwhelming possibilities. As amazing as all that was, it didn't hold a candle to the selection I had in my walk-in pantry. I had one whole selection, floor to ceiling, filled with different kinds of cereal. At least 1/2 of the boxes weren't even in English. It was the same thing with chips. One whole section was nothing but chips and pretzels. I already knew I had a whole bunch of different dips in the refrigerators. I just stood and stared and said, "Oh my God, over and over again." It was too much. I felt like I was going to pass out. I was Scrooge McDuck walking into the vault. I was Charlie in his chocolate factory. I was Harry Potter walking into Hogwarts. This kitchen was beyond amazing. It was worth 200,000 points on its own. I didn't even have to ask. I just knew that as soon as I ate something, a replacement item would appear. This place stocked itself. Everything stayed fresh and ready to eat all the time. I could wake up in the middle of the night, decide to snack on some popcorn, and it would still be hot and ready to go. Finally, I became aware that Tyler was squeezing my arm and attempting to pull me along. "I think there's even more to see," he said playfully, and I just stared at him. "That's impossible," I said flatly. "I'm already in heaven. How can there possibly be more heaven?" "I don't know," he laughed, "but let's go and find out." We left the pantry and walked down the counter. That's when I saw there was a whole back end of this place. It switched from being a 1950s diner back to tropical decor, only this time we were in an entertainment area. I had all the regular games like darts, ping pong, air hockey, foosball, and pool. I also had specialty areas for things like arcade games and poker. One section that caught my attention was a jigsaw puzzle table and shelves filled with all different kinds of puzzles. I'd loved jigsaw puzzles when I was a kid, and I'd always thought about doing one again. I'd either been living in another guy's home or living out of a hotel though, so it just never seemed to be the right time. I could have continued exploring, but suddenly I just wanted to stop right there, have breakfast, and do a puzzle. Tyler thought that sounded like a great idea, so he went back to the kitchen, found a couple of bowls and spoons, and picked out a cereal to try. That was harder than it sounds, as there were so many to choose from. I finally picked one that looked like Frosted Flakes, but the flakes themselves were thicker and crunchier. I wanted to be at least somewhat healthy, so I sliced up a banana and added that. When I was a kid, I'd seen the picture on the cereal box showing a delicious bowl of cereal with slices of fruit on them. When I opened the box, however, there was no fruit to be found. I felt like I'd been cheated. Why show something on the box if it wasn't on the inside? I could fix that now, as I could add fresh fruit whenever I wanted. Just to be really decadent, I added blueberries and sliced strawberries too. Then I poured Demerara sugar over the whole lot. It was a brown-looking sugar with big crystals. It should give the whole bowl extra sweetness and a nice texture. I went to add milk and discovered I had a whole selection of milks now. I had the normal options, fat-free, 2%, whole milk, but now I also had almond, soy, rice, flax, hazelnut, coconut, cashew, goat, buffalo, horse, sheep, camel, yak, and reindeer. Wow! I wanted to try them all at some point, but for now, I just went with whole milk. I took a sample bite. It was so good. Oh my God, the crunch of the sugar and the flakes mixed perfectly with the freshness of the fruit. The yum factor was through the roof. It was like the bowl had been put together by a 5-star cereal chef. Tyler had gone with some sort of raisin bran and added more raisins, cranberries, apricots, and sliced almonds. Then he went crazy and added coconut milk. I had a taste of his cereal. It was really good. Not as good as mine, but still good. We were headed back to the puzzle section when Tyler casually pointed out I had a door that said wine with a cute graphic of grapes and vines. So on top of everything else, it looked like I had a selection of wines too. Oh, and coffee. How did I forget the coffee? There was this machine with a whole selection of coffees and specialty drinks. I picked out a pecan coffee blend and added cashew milk and a generous helping of sugar. It was so smooth and nutty. Totally yummy. When we returned to the puzzle table, I noticed there were 2 smaller side tables to set food and drinks on. Now the puzzle table could stay nice and clean, and there wasn't any chance of spilling a drink on the pieces. The house had thought of everything. I set my coffee and cereal bowl down, and then started looking through the puzzles. I had hundreds of them, and they were organized by number of pieces and then by theme. I didn't want to spend all day here, so I selected one that had 200 pieces. It showed colorful birds sitting on a wooden lattice against a blue sky. It seemed happy, cheerful, and free, and that's what I wanted this morning. We poured out the pieces, flipped them so they were picture side up, and started pulling out the edge pieces. I quickly discovered I was much better at puzzles. Now I had the full use of my magic sight. The edge pieces seemed to jump out at me, and once I had them grouped together, I could just feel the pieces that wanted to connect. It was so fast, it was almost like I was cheating. I was having a lot of fun though. Tyler was feeling left out, so I slowed down, ate my cereal, and let him match some pieces too. That's when I had an idea. Tyler, you found a whole new way to use your incubus senses when you touched the healing rune last night. Why don't you try the same thing here? You mean find out what puzzle pieces want to hook up? He laughed. He was just playing, but I was kind of serious. Exactly, I replied. I think you have magical senses that you can use on more than just people. He sent me a doubtful look, and then gave a half-hearted attempt. I wasn't really sure this was going to work, so I wasn't going to push it. This was supposed to be just a relaxing morning after all. To his surprise, even a half-hearted attempt found a match. Tyler put the two pieces together and then tried again. This time I saw his magic really spread out and caress the pile of pieces. He exclaimed in surprise as he found a lot of matches. He picked up speed at putting the puzzle together, and I did too. I still tried to stay a bit slower than him, as I didn't want to discourage him. The look on his face as he found a new way to use his magic was priceless. We weren't saving the world or beating up bad guys, but this was still great magic practice. Before we knew it, we were finished. I wasn't sure how long it had been, but my guess was we'd put the 200 pieces puzzle together in less than 10 minutes. That was just crazy. "Want to go again?" Tyler asked with a big grin on his face as we started breaking the puzzle down to put it back in the box. "Sure," I replied happily. "I've only had one bowl of cereal, so I'm still hungry. Want to do a 500-piece puzzle this time?" "How about we try 1,000? Tyler replied with a gleam in his eye. "I know you wanted to go to the beach and train today, but this is a great way of training too. I think you have an amazing ability to see things, but have you really pushed yourself to see what you could do?" Then he gave me a sharp look. "And don't say you already did, because I know you slowed down on that last puzzle." "You got me," I laughed. I did slow down a bit. 1,000-piece puzzle sounds like a whole day project, but you are right. This could be a nice challenge. Plus, you just discovered a new way of using your magic, so you'll get your training in too. We got the finished puzzle back on the shelf. We put the finished puzzle back on the shelf and then picked out a 1,000-piece puzzle of a picturesque village in Italy. I loved the architecture and the flowers in the windows. It seemed like a place where Eggy might have gotten his idea of becoming a vase. Before we left to get more food, Tyler pulled me close and kissed me thoroughly. I wrapped my arms around his strong body and let him have his way with my lips. Fortunately, we already made love enough this morning that I could just enjoy holding him and having an affectionate moment. I loved kissing, loved it. But wrapping my arms around his powerful frame and feeling his muscles flexing was a heaven all its own. Finally, his lips let go. We had a final hug and then headed towards the kitchen, holding hands. It was a short distance, but even so, holding his hand was nice. Somehow, this simple act said we were a couple and we liked being together. Now it was my second time in the kitchen. I started noticing even more stuff. Not only did I have beer on tap in a wine room, I also had a whole section of the pantry filled with bourbons, vodkas, rums, and whiskeys. There was also a small arch near the floor that was labeled Tuna Town. It looked like my kitchen had also taken our furry companions into account. I had no idea what was through the arch, but I was sure Bermuda and Mr. Tubbles would think it was delicious. Tyler had a waffle for his next course and I joined him. We didn't even have to make them. They were already fresh, warm, and ready to go. Tyler noticed them in what I called the warm bake section with the bread. I also had several kinds of pancakes too. Tyler started with a plain waffle, but I went with chocolate chip. I added lots of butter, maple syrup, fruit slices, and a whole lot of whipped cream. I stuck with the regular butter and syrup though, although I now had different types of them too. Tyler kept it simple, butter and powdered sugar, although he experimented with different butter from different countries. We made our way back to the jigsaw puzzle and settled in. I found that working the puzzle was a lot like playing Sudoku. The pieces felt right coming together, and it made my analytical side very happy. It was great training for my magic sight too. At first, it was too much for me to handle, but then I just relaxed and got into the groove. It wasn't long before I could scan the whole tile of loose pieces in one shot and find out exactly what I needed. The only thing slowing me down was eating, and once I finished with my waffle, it was so good. I started using both hands, and the puzzle started taking shape quickly. We had the border together, and I was working on the sky when 2 cat beds on wheels rolled into the room. I'd never seen anything like that before, so I just stared, too surprised to say anything. Tyler looked up to see why I had stopped, and he looked shocked too. Bermuda and Mr. Tubbles had their own rolling beds. How crazy is that? They both rolled up to our puzzle station, and then the beds height adjusted so they could get the best view of the whole situation. This was lazy luxury at its best. I pulled Bermuda over so I could kiss and love on him. He purred and accepted my homage like he was a king on a throne. They both stayed for a while, but then they rolled back off into the kitchen again. Maybe it was Tuna Town time. Regardless, I turned my attention back to the puzzle and quickly got into the flow again. Tyler was working on the street, and he was clearly having a wonderful time also. He wasn't anywhere near as fast as me, but he was just starting to get used to using his magic touch like this. Even during our time putting the puzzle together, I could see him getting more and more confident with his abilities. Since we were never stuck, the puzzle came together quickly. It should have taken hours, but about 45 minutes later, Tyler set the last piece. He gave a satisfied sigh as we both sat back and enjoyed the finished view. Tyler was right. Putting the puzzle together had been great training. I had used more than my sight. I'd used my touch, too. Towards the end, I'd even started to use sound a bit. It was usually after I'd found the piece I wanted. I found myself pinging the 2 sides to double-check they would fit together. It made me wonder if I could somehow work in my other senses of smell and taste. That sounded crazy, but the better I could sense the world around me, the better I could interact with it magically. It also got me wondering about the rest of our crew. Could Annabeth hear the pieces and find the sides that sounded the same? Could John use his earth sense like Tyler was using his incubus touch? What about Sandy? I knew she was a mage, but maybe this was a way to train her magic sight too. Or she could use her earth senses. She was a deep earth ambassador after all. This morning had been so fun and such an unexpected surprise. I opened my mouth to tell Tyler my thoughts when the doorbell rang. I closed my mouth and we shared a puzzled look. I didn't have a doorbell. We got to our feet and went back to the greeting room, the cats trailing along behind us. I'd say they were on high alert too, as their ears were perked up, but they were still on their rolling beds, so they weren't that concerned. I opened the door to my apartment, but nobody was there. The doorbell sounded again. "Think it's the front of the house?" I asked Tyler. He shrugged. "I'm not sure. Let's go find out." We went down the steps and over to the main door of the house. I figured it couldn't be too bad, as neither cat left their rolling beds to follow us. I also noticed a new door in the main hallway right by the front entrance. Was that our new transfer room? If so, I needed to check and see if the centaurs had sent NL's clothes. I opened the front door and nobody was on the porch, but there were several people standing on the sidewalk right by the edge of the house shield. The main guy in the middle didn't see me as he was looking back over his shoulder. There were even more people making their way through the park and heading our way. He put his hand on the house shield and I heard the doorbell ring again. The group wasn't attacking us, so that was nice, and they didn't look hostile. Instead, I would say they looked serious, expectant, and even nervous. I shared a questioning glance with Tyler, but he just shrugged. "Well, if someone rings your door, it's best to go see what they want." I opened the front door wide and stepped outside. We were quickly spotted and all eyes turned to watch us as we went down the front steps and walked up the front walkway. We reached the group and made sure to stay on our side of the shield. Just because they weren't actively attacking us didn't mean we were safe. "Can I help you?" I asked politely. "My name is Ken Hill, and I'm here with my school for an exchange of reconciliation." The man in the middle looked serious, but he also matched my politeness. "I wish to speak with your master." And that will continue next week. All right, exciting times. Okay, guys, yeah, that's it. see you guys next week.